It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
On a Friday, and good to have you with us. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes of this Friday Sports Wrap. We'll be joined by our man Tino Pattigno, because if it's a Friday on Sports Wrap, what is it, Sam Yarnell?
It's a NASCAR Friday, Jason Page.
Absolutely, it's a NASCAR Friday. So Tino Pattigno will be here. We'll get some thoughts with him on all things NASCAR. Our man Robert Littal, Black Sports Online, will join us as well. Go around the weekend sports with him. He's got some interesting things cooking. I can't announce them, but he's actually working on something pretty cool that hopefully he'll be able to tell us about soon. All right, Sam Yarnell, you heard his voice, now you see his face. Oh, look at him. Texted me last night when Shohei Ohtani hits a home run and it's 1-0 Dodgers. And he's like, the Mets are dead. The Mets are dead after like a half an inning. And I hit him back because I'm like, see, this tweet's not going to age. This text is not going to age well. It was 1-1. Then it was 3-2. And then I turned around and the game was over. We'll get to that in a second. We got to start with the real highlight of the night, which had to be Yankees-Guardians. My goodness, could you get any more out of a postseason baseball? I mean, that might have been, you talk about potentially game of the year material in sports. When we get to the end of the year and we do our year in review, this could be game of the year stuff. I mean, the Yankees are basically sleepwalking through this game. It looked like they had no desire to win. And then you get to the 8th inning. Aaron Judge finally has his Yankees postseason moment. He ties the game at 3. Then Giancarlo Stanton, Babe Ruth of the postseason, gets up, hits a home run. By the way, both of these off of Emmanuel Clase, who was not Class A last night. And then they're robbed of their moment. The Yankees, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton were robbed of their moment by Luke Weaver and, of course, Clay Holmes. Will the real Clay Holmes please stand up? Please stand up. Well, he did last night. Will the real Luke Weaver please stand up? Please stand up. He did last night. Noel off the bench, 2-run tying home run in the 9th, and then walking it off David Fry. I mean, look, if the cold comfort is the fact that it's only 2-1. They needed a miracle, the Guardians did, to win that game, and they got it. Yankees are going to win the series. I'm not worried.
All right, so first of all, series hasn't started yet. Road team hasn't won a game.
It's over.
Second of all, I saw this tweet, and I meant to send it to you, admittedly, but it was very late at night, and I forgot, so I'm going to mention it to you now and get your raw reaction. I'm paraphrasing, but the tweet goes, Aaron Judge finally hits his first home run of the postseason and everyone's going wild, and it turns out to be completely meaningless because they lose the game and it didn't matter at all. I do think that poetic, the Aaron Judge postseason relationship. It truly, truly is. This was an experience. I will tell you that as recently as 2 days ago, I had Yankees fans, or I should say media members who just so happen to be Yankee fans, telling me, yeah, I think Luke Weaver's a good bet for ALCS MVP. You know, he's got a chance to tie the all-time saves record in a single postseason. And, you know, the bullpen's finally looking okay. Bullpen's finally looking okay, right, Yankee fans? Yeah. That one thing that haunted you all season long and you had an opportunity to go out and fix at the trade deadline and straight up didn't. Instead, you went and got Jazz Chisholm. We told you that this was going to happen, and now it's happening, and everyone's acting surprised.
All right.
I don't get it from that aspect. Right. Very, very predictable that this would happen at some point. Will it be sustained? That's the real question. Is this one miracle that we told you the Guardians would need, a Christmas miracle, if you will, enough to propel them?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can the Yankees figure it out?
Let me say this. Let me say this. When Ramirez hit the home run in that Yankee win in Game 2, that mean nothing home run, my ears perked up. And I said, uh-oh. Because with a guy like Luke Weaver, who's been through the ringer, confidence is everything. I wish we had our friend David Arzman, because he could definitely speak to this. As soon as he gave up that home run to Ramirez, go and look. He threw a lot of bad pitches in that game last night that could have gone somewhere else. So to me, the writing was on the wall when Ramirez hit that home run. And for the first time, Luke Weaver as a closer had to experience the doubt. Oh boy, am I really cut out for this? And I think you saw that in the ninth inning on Thursday night. So if you're the Yankees, you better hope you don't get into a situation where you need this guy over the final, couple of games of this series to win. Because it could get a little hairy. I do still think the Yankees win the series, though. And by the way, more base running blunders. They got bailed out on the Volpe one, and that's that. To me, the fact that we have to talk about base running errors at this level to the degree that we do with the Yankees is just mind numbing. Real
it's
quick,
so funny. I was watching the
Mets.
game with a Yankee fan, and when the runner was picked off of first, and they didn't score the runner from third with runners on the corners. Again, I understand not scoring the runner from third. It's the postseason. You can't trade the out there for the risk of the run. I get that part. But I turned to the Yankee fan and I said exactly what you said to me yesterday, Jason. You're not going to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers running the bases like this. You're not going to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers giving up free outs on the bases.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not going to happen. Another thing, Jason, from this game last night, maybe the most troubling thing for me for the Yankees going forward in this series, in a loss, they used 7 pitchers who threw no less than 2/3 of an inning each. And obviously the new rules, you got to face 3 hitters. Now turn around and the next day you've got Luis Gil going, who in the back half of the season has had problems getting deep into games, and his pitch count gets very high very early. I'm officially worried about the Yankees.
I'm officially worried about the Mets. We only got about 30 seconds, but do we really need much more than that? The Dodgers offense exploding on Thursday night for 10 runs. They beat up on the Mets. It wasn't pretty. It was kind of sad at Citi Field. And
you mentioned my text. Yeah. The game was over after the second pitch. Shohei Ohtani ended that series in the top of the first inning of Game 4. Truly remarkable stuff.
Yeah. Dodgers are headed to the World Series. It's just a question of, when they pronounce the time of death on the Mets. We'll see when that happens. All right, we'll get to some Thursday night football. A couple of games Sam and I will be watching in the NFL on Sunday as well. That's next. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder, will hang out with us. Talk about some of the top stories of the week. What a week in sports it has been. Get into it with him. Sammy Arnell returns. Broncos take advantage of a depleted Saints team in a rout in New Orleans last night. And I was just saying it to Sam off the air, and I'll bring the conversation on the air here for the audience because we don't like to do the show in the virtual green room, but the Broncos have something in Bo Nix. Like this thing feels like it's sort of turning on a dime. When you look at what the Broncos have from a defensive standpoint, Nick's getting more confident every week. Watching the broadcast last night, they were talking about his relationship with Sean Payton and how, it's kind of this father-son sort of relationship that Sean Payton pushes him hard, but Bo Nix wants to be pushed hard. I get the fact that the Saints are hurting from an injury standpoint. Still, to go on the road and put that kind of whooping on New Orleans, pretty impressive stuff from Denver.
Yeah, so the Saints are horrible. We talked last season, and we haven't mentioned it as much this season, and I think their wins in the first 2 weeks are probably why. Go look at the Saints cap table. It's not good. If you look at it down the line, it's not good for like 3 years. The Saints are in the cap dungeon of the NFL. They are the epitome of what happens when you don't manage the salary cap well over the course of multiple years, and it ends up coming back to bite you on the back end. The exact opposite of what you're seeing in cities like Philadelphia and Buffalo, these places that have star players throughout the roster, but can continually turn it over and manage those contracts. The Saints were never able to do that, and now it's showing why. Spencer Rattler last night was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to pretend that Jake Haener 2 weeks ago wasn't any better when he came in for Derek Carr?
No, but that was one last possession. When you took a dump on him, we didn't have a lot of time in the segment. I didn't think he threw the ball that bad in that possession. And the thing about him is, and you could see it last night, and I thought Kirk Herbstreit pointed it out well. He makes quick decisions. He finds a target and he throws the ball. He's not hanging on to the football. They better start him next week because it cannot be any worse than what we saw with Spencer Rattler.
Well, yeah, and Spencer Rattler got injured at the end of that game, so
I
would be
a little tweaked. Yeah,
but yeah, I'd be surprised if it was anybody besides Jake Haener next week. All of that said. I feel really bad for Dennis Allen at this point. I do, because he's doing as much as he can. Like, that team is playing hard. The schemes are there. They're getting people open. They just have no playmakers besides Alvin Kamara. And last night, you saw exactly what happens when a defense schemes around one playmaker. That entire Broncos defense had one thing in mind, and that was stop 41 anytime he touches the ball. And other than that, we'll let them beat us. And they didn't. So if that's the game that the Saints are going to have to play, this is going to be a very long season in New Orleans. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it to me.
I agree.
On the Broncos side of things, you're right about Bo Nix. The kid is a star. Javonte Williams showed you last night about his ceiling, and to me, they're going to need pieces around him in the future. I don't know if this year's the answer to that, because you're 4-3 in a stacked conference and a stacked division. You're on the outside looking in at the playoff right now. So I would say lose as many games as you can, and in a stacked wide receiver skill position class, go out and get a high draft pick.
Losing more games is not acceptable to a fan base that has been subjected to so much losing over the years, and there's so much promise in Bo Nix. And Sean Payton at some point's got to worry, hey, is my job at risk if we're not winning enough games? Is this new ownership group, going to be accepting of that? Now, he does make a lot of money. I don't know if they're going to want to pay him to sit on. Hey, it wouldn't be the first time that we saw a guy
get 3 or whatever.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time.
They traded for him. They traded for the head coach. They're not going to hot seat him after 3 years and literally nobody.
Not saying they're going to hot seat him, but you got to win games. You cannot continue to have a dejected fan base. I would have liked to have seen them go out and trade for a receiver. I was going back and forth with Nick Ferguson on this when Cooper was still available and Devontae Adams was still available. Neither are now. But Kyle Pitts was a guy he mentioned, and to me, either the Falcons are suddenly, enamored with Kyle Pitts and he's working well with Kirk Cousins, or they're showcasing him for a deal at the trade deadline, because they do have a lot of offensive weapons there in Atlanta. They could probably do without Kyle Pitts if the right deal was there. I would love to see Kyle Pitts in a Denver Bronco uniform.
I feel like they have a tight end, though, don't they? Don't the Broncos have a decent tight end? Listen, Kyle Pitts is very interesting, right? Because what do the Falcons do? If they go out and get I don't even know. Like, do the Cowboys sell on Jalen Tolbert? That could be an interesting pickup. The thing is, they've got young weapons. Like it's not like they don't have weapons in that offense that they didn't spend a lot of draft capital on not that long ago. I'm looking at you, Marvin Mims. Cortland Sutton had a horrible day yesterday. Did Cortland Sutton even play in the game yesterday?
I don't even know if he had a catch. Through the first 3
catch.
quarters.
I know for a fact that he did not have a catch. I don't even know if he played in the game. That's how absent he was. I think that there's part of this, there's an evolution. And with these kinds of quarterbacks, because Bo Nix is not the type of not the same ilk of rookie quarterback as Caleb or Jaden or these guys who are very polished coming in. Bo Nix has rougher edges. He's much more of a Josh Allen type. Like, as much as we talk about Josh Allen on the show, it looks a lot like Bo Nix is the closest thing to Josh Allen in terms of young quarterbacks in the league right now. So what did the Bills do with that? Right? It took them a couple of years to figure out what the scheme was around him. And if they need to go out this offseason and maybe search the free agency market or search for a trade candidate this offseason, I think that makes them a much better team in the long term, and you don't end up like the Saints who are in the cap dungeon.
All right, we got 40 seconds to give you 2 games we're going to be watching on Sunday in the NFL. Go ahead, Sam, because we both have the same games.
Yeah, I mean, they're the 2 biggest games of the slate. It's the Super Bowl rematch, the Chiefs and the Niners, and then the divisional game between the Vikings and Lions. What? Yeah. 4 of the 7 best teams in the NFL going head-to-head? Yeah. What a weekend.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you to go watch the Giants and Eagles, but I can't do that in good conscience to this audience. Or Bengals-Browns, big divisional matchup.
Or Titans-Bills.
Yeah. We can't do that to you. Sam will return for Page versus the Prince. Robert Littal is next. Welcome back to this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. Sam Yarnell will return a little later on in the show. Tino Pattigno talks NASCAR in 20 minutes. But if it's Friday, it means it's time to bring in our friend Robert Littal from Black Sports Online, their founder, hanging out with us on the program. Get some thoughts with him on some of the big stories from the week that was in sports. One of the things I look forward to every week is getting your perspectives, Robert. And I want to start with a couple of things that as soon as I saw these stories this week, I said, I got to file these away because I know I'm going to want to talk about them with Robert Littal. So one of them is this RG3 podcast where Travis Hunter pops up. And it's funny because the day before it, we had Patrick McEnroe and I were hosting the show together, and we were talking about Travis Hunter and his prospects of playing both sides of the ball in the NFL and how I think it's kind of tough given, the injury concerns, how tough it is to stay healthy at one position, let alone playing 2. But, Patrick's point was maybe they put him just on a snap count and say, all right, we're going to figure out a way to just divide it. You're only going to get X number of plays. You're not going to be playing, obviously, every play of the game. So we got into that conversation. And then the next day, he goes on this, Travis Hunter goes on this podcast with RG3, and they have a conversation about the Heisman. And I want you to listen to it. This is RG3 for people who may have missed it earlier in the week on his podcast, talking with Travis Hunter. Listen, and then I want you to react, Robert.
Right. And I want you to know that I don't want y'all to shy away from speaking that stuff into existence. I don't think that you can't win it. I definitely think you can win it.
I know I can win it, but
Robert
I don't know.
Couldn't win it either.
I don't know who was there. I mean, y'all see Ashton Genty, but it's not like we haven't seen a running back that's good.
All right.
We haven't seen a player that plays both ways, and I'm gonna keep saying that. It's like he have 95 carries.
Yeah.
For
1,000 yards. Yeah.
If I had 95 catches, how much yards you think I have?
Okay.
So I'm trying to tell him, like, if I had 95 targets on defense, what you think I'll have?
Right.
If I had 95 catches on offense, what you think I'll have? So I try to take, he got double the touches I got on the offensive side of the ball, and I still have defensive stats that's still crazy, and we only in week 6.
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna argue about it.
I don't consider that.
I got to be honest. It's a turnoff for me. If you want to hype yourself up, that's one thing. Why are you taking a dump on Ashton Genty? Like, from a PR standpoint, a lot of these college athletes have become so much more polished in that regard. This is just, I don't get it.
Well, he's not a math major. I mean, so, the math wasn't quite mathing on that particular subject. But I didn't understand what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that his value comes in the fact that he plays, all over the field. He plays, both sides. And if he was to play one specific area, if he just was a wide receiver, maybe he would have more catches. If he was just a DB, maybe he would, more people would target him. But the interesting thing is that he's on the field all the time. he's on the field as much, at least offensively, as Genty, because it's not like you said at the beginning, it's not like he's a spot player on almost. Like he's a full-time player on both sides. I mean, I think you can get your point across without necessarily saying, oh, there's been other, running backs that are good. There hasn't been a lot of running backs that are going to get close to Barry Sanders type of numbers. I mean, there's running backs that are good, and then there's Barry Sanders type of good. That's a different type of level. So, I understood what he was trying to say. He was trying to articulate it. It didn't come out in the best way. I wouldn't call it a turnoff, per se. I think,
you don't think Heisman wait a minute. You don't think Heisman, you don't think there's going to be Heisman voters out there, especially old school Heisman voters that are going to be turned off by that?
Yeah, I think that's more the Deion, Colorado, I got to watch and all of that stuff. I do think the kids that are a little more out there with the podcast and a lot of the talking and stuff, the old school Heisman, voters may turn them off, a bit. But in the end, I think it comes down to, is Colorado going to have a winning season, which is, iffy, they have games when you win, or if someone like Genty breaks a record. If you break Barry Sanders' record, it's going to be very hard for someone not, to vote for you. So I think he gave Genty, for people that don't, because he go to Boise State. Not a lot of people know what's going on down there. He just gave Genty, I would say, a little boost.
Yeah, he did.
By saying his name.
Yeah,
people are like, who's this Genty guy with 95 carries for 1,000 yards? That's not too bad. Highlights.
From Travis Hunter rocking the mic to Jerry Jones on the phone with a Dallas sports radio station earlier this week. Cue up a piece of insanity. Listen to this.
Seems like my point. Let me tell you what I'll do. About it. I will let us sit down and look at the decisions we've made over the last several years. Okay? I'll look at it. Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call with you over a radio and sitting here and throwing all the good out with the dishwater, you have got to be smoking something over there this morning. I'm not. And I really don't, and I don't even want our listeners to listen to me, to talk about, this is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask why.
A job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Wow. Could you imagine the gall, the audacity to do something like that?
I'm not surprised at all. This is Jerry Jones. Have you ever watched the Cowboys game? At the end of the game, without fault, you see Jerry Jones walking with this Little Sopranos crew. They're walking down the hall. Every single Cowboys. I don't see the coach. I don't see Dak Prescott. I don't see C.D. Lamb. I don't see Ezekiel Elliott. I don't see Mackay. All I see is Jerry Jones walking down this tunnel with this guy holding the bag, and they walk. And then the next thing I know, I see a media scrum around the owner that's bigger than I ever seen with Caitlin Clark, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes. I don't even know how. It's almost like, I don't know. He's almost like a super, like Tony Stark or somebody. And then people are surprised that he goes out and talks like this. I'm not surprised. And listen, I know he's not quote unquote their bosses and he's not quote unquote pay. He can do it if he wants to. If he tells those people I will take the Cowboys network and my interviews and Steven interviews to .7, if you don't get rid of these guys or take them off the air when I come on, it'll happen.
Those guys handled it way better than I would have, because I would have been fired, because I would have said something that would have got me fired. We're coming back, more with Robert Littal. Robert Littal joins us every week on SportsWrap to talk about the top stories in sports. Always one of my favorite things we do on this program, gain some perspective from him. WNBA Finals. I mean, 2 of the first 3 games, bangers. It's been a fun series to watch, and it certainly hasn't done anything to hurt all this positive momentum that the WNBA has had going forward. Obviously, the Liberty 1 win away from closing out their first WNBA championship. But they're going to have to earn it, because if there's one thing we've seen about Minnesota, if you don't play 40 minutes against that team, they'll find a way to beat you. But yet Sabrina Ionescu hitting the game winner in Game 3. Breanna Stewart struggling down the stretch of Game 1, and the Lynx able to steal that game. They got the split in New York. Now they're back in Minnesota. We'll see if the Lynx could get it to a Game 5. I'd be surprised if we didn't see a Game 5 in that series. What have you made of the first few games of that series, Robert?
I mean, it's kind of amazing. In spite of all of the weird stuff and crazy stuff that has happened throughout the WNBA season, on the court, when it's mattered, it's delivered. When we've had these marquee games, the All-Star game, now the playoffs and the WNBA Finals, on the court is delivered. And it's been refreshing, just for the most part, to see people talking about, basketball in a positive way. The ratings have been, very, very strong, which lets me know that at least a portion of that new audience either on social media or just decided not to be turned off about things that was happening, on social media. And that was the goal. That was the entire goal, was to get these new fans in, specifically off of Caitlin Clark. And just like if I was going on after a hit show, I was going after Grey's Anatomy or Seinfeld or MASH, keep a portion of that audience when Friends comes on or whatever. And that's what they're doing. They're not quite at that level where if it was Caitlin Clark, obviously this would be getting 3-4 million, but it's strong, and you hope that continues to carry over. Amazing series though, two equally matched teams. When you have two teams that are, I would say those were the two best teams throughout the season, this is what you expect. And I'm glad people are recognizing the skill set of the WNBA now. Yeah,
a lot of people thought that Liberty Aces was sort of the de facto WNBA Finals. I think they were giving short shrift to the Lynx, who were so good all season long and don't get the attention that the Liberty, the Aces, or Caitlin Clark were getting. So a lot of people are seeing Courtney Williams and being exposed to her for the first time, and she is a stud. I mean, that's
what I like to call the Kawhi Leonard experience.
Yeah.
Is where a person that's not necessarily on social media, that's not necessarily looking for attention, and one day you flip on the screen and you be like, hey, who is this? That person is really good. I mean, but I don't see her talking and everything. And those are the type of where you become a fan of someone that is not necessarily in your face all the time. You're like, I got to continue to follow this person. It's like I remember when I finally caught on to Jokic. Yeah. I was like, hey, this guy's really good. Why didn't nobody tell me about this guy, before? And then you continue to follow him throughout his career. So yeah. I'm glad these other young ladies are now getting a lot of the attention that they deserve.
Yeah, Courtney Williams does her talking on the court. Angel Reese does a lot of talking off the court. In this case, she's talking about how much money she is or isn't making. She can't afford her $8,000 a month rent in Chicago on her WNBA salary, she says. We get it. We know that WNBA salaries haven't yet caught up to the popularity or the money that's being injected into the sport with new TV contracts. Again, much like the Travis Hunter thing, where I'm sitting there going, why are you saying this and hurting your image? With Angel Reese, maybe she just wants that to be part of her image.
Well, she said it on that same live that, the negativity, the haters, the trolls, the controversy, the drama has helped her in certain aspects of her marketing, her podcast, and I'm sure some brands see it as a way that they be able to market her. I mean, she's everywhere. You can't go. She's at the Victoria's Secret fashion show. She's at NFL games. She's with rappers. She's with actresses. This is obviously someone that loves attention, which is nothing, wrong with that. I think where people maybe get turned off a little bit with Angel Reese is that you are obviously putting all this attention on yourself, and then sometimes you react in a way that you're upset that you're getting attention, and blaming people for the attention that you've actually sought, out. So, I think that's a young person thing. I want. And then when I get a little pushback, why are you giving me attention? Why are you looking at me? Why are you talking about me? I think, that's a young thing. One thing I will say to Angel is that, listen, there's been a lot of athletes over the years that started off with a lot of money for however they were going to get it, and they lived above their means. And you just never know with sports, how your career is going to go. And then whatever deals you have, eventually they expire. And we saw something like this with Skylar Diggins, where, very hot at the beginning, now just is kind of just plays basketball. You don't really see her a lot anymore. Maybe put a little bit in the savings account, for a rainy day.
I only got about 30 seconds here, but, you're in L.A., so I got to ask you about the Kawhi Leonard news. You actually mentioned him earlier, and I was like, boy, that's perfect timing. It just saddens me that we're never really going to get to see the best of Kawhi Leonard again, it feels like.
It's amazing that, the Raptors, they got through that entire season, because he really hasn't gotten through an entire season since then. I mean, the Ballmer has to be upset because, you open this big arena, and Kawhi Leonard's the main attraction. And without Kawhi, I know he's rich, but nobody likes to lose money. And it's going to be curious if they, have this losing season. Are there enough Clipper fans in LA to keep this arena full?
Yeah, and that team may not even be a play-in team at this point if Leonard doesn't play enough games, knowing how good the Western Conference is. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. Check out Black Sports Online. Always appreciate it, my friend. We will see you back here next week.
And have an awesome weekend, another great weekend in sports. Hopefully my Buckeyes can bounce back from the heartbreak of last week.
We're coming back. We roll along on this Friday edition of the show. Paige versus the Prince. Week 7 NFL picks. How do you do better than perfection? We're going to try. Because I was 4-0 last week. Maybe I'll pick 5 games this week and go 5-0. Just because I can. Let's talk NASCAR. If we're talking NASCAR betting, let's talk with Tino Pattigno. Does a great job. SiriusXM NASCAR Radio contributes. There he is, our official guy for NASCAR betting and inside talk, and he even joined me on Thursday's show to talk with Austin Dillon. First of all, nice job on that. Thank you. That interview would have sucked had you not been there. So I am extremely grateful for you being part of that conversation. Let's talk about what happened last weekend at the Roval. In Charlotte, where Kyle Larson wins. We get the field narrowed down from 12 to 8. And give me some thoughts on what we saw last week and what Kyle Larson was able to do and pretty much dominating this race.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would have put it. A domination race from Kyle Larson once again throughout these NASCAR playoffs. We saw it at the Bristol Night Race where he just went out and looked like the best car in the field, proved it, and really just dominated the field. And he did that once again last weekend at the Roval, where, to me, I think the biggest thing from that is the fact that that 5 team not only can win at every track, but can dominate at any type of racetrack throughout these NASCAR playoffs. He's been a favorite all season long. If they do run into trouble at any of these tracks, I'm not necessarily expecting that, but we've seen it happen throughout these NASCAR playoffs where these top guys and top drivers do find some issues from time to time. So if that does happen, Larson is still in the best spot to make it to the championship 4.
Well, going back to our conversation yesterday with Austin Dillon when you were trying to pin him down on who he liked, to make the Final Four and win these NASCAR playoffs, was there anything that he said that kind of took you by surprise?
Oh, definitely. I think the fact that he alluded to Joey Logano being one of his picks within that championship 4 was huge to me. Not only did those 2 drivers get into it on the racetrack at Richmond specifically there, and it was notable that those 2 drivers were essentially mad at each other, right? Because of how everything unfolded after that race. Great analysis by Austin Dillon there. Really appreciate him being objective in his picks too, talking about, Toyota driver like Denny Hamlin could potentially be there. Joey Logano, he mentioned, as well as Kyle Larson and William Byron within his picks. I definitely want everyone to check out that full interview as well, because that was a great one there with him. But Joey Logano is the lucky one. We're going to Vegas, and Joey Logano is lucky this weekend. For him to be put into the playoffs where Alex Bowman was essentially locked in had he not been disqualified from the Roval race. That was one of the biggest news coming out of there. So Joey Logano in the round of 8 now, and this is one of the best round of 8s I've ever seen in covering the sport.
Wow. With that said, let's move to this week's race, the South Point 400 here in Sin City in Las Vegas. Give me some thoughts on sort of how this track sets up and who it sets up for best.
Well, I think all of these 8 drivers, it sets up for really well. And that's the best part is like we look at this field of these 8 drivers that are capable of winning a championship. And there's 5 championships among the 8 of them. Joey Logano has 2. Look at Ryan Blaney, defending champ, Larson, and Chase Elliott as well. They're on the field. Denny Hamlin's still searching for his. Byron, Reddick, Bell, too. But they've all been in these crucial spots in terms of trying to get to a championship. So I believe any driver could go out and win this race at Las Vegas. What makes it go a great track is it's an intermediate 1.5 mile track, and that's some of the greatest racing we've seen throughout this season, so it should be a great show as well.
Am I wrong and it feels like Chase Elliott's kind of flying under the radar right now?
He is flying under the radar for sure, and the reason is he doesn't dominate or lead as many laps as Kyle Larson would or William Byron, 2 drivers that are on the same team as him. So for Chase Elliott, he is the most popular driver. Everyone knows he's racing on Sundays, but he just isn't necessarily as flashy this season as those 2 other drivers within the same camp. Now, what's gotten him to this point of the round of 8? Consistency, finishing inside the top 5, top 10s. He has the most of those 2 categories alongside Tyler Reddick, who won the regular season championship. So to me, Chase is in a good spot, but you will potentially need to win to get to that championship 4.
All right, look at the betting. According to FanDuel right now, Kyle Larson, a huge betting favorite. When you look at this weekend's race at plus 280, William Byron at 850, Christopher Bell at 950, then Tyler Reddick also at 950, Denny Hamlin at 1,000, so 10-1 and 14-1. If you're talking about Ryan Blaney, tell me what you like from a value standpoint.
Yeah, well, I think all these drivers on the board do present some value, except for Kyle Larson. I got to touch on that real quick because with him being that heavy of a favorite, that's something that I see in a NASCAR race and I just stay away from. Because with all the things that can go wrong, and I know you can have... To put it in perspective, William Byron was the fastest driver in this race when they raced at this track in the spring. Well, when he was making his way, passing Kyle Larson's other drivers within just a few laps to get to the front, he runs over a garbage bag sized of debris. Totally destroys his chances of winning. His car, they had to take it off, obviously stopped down pit road, overheating. That's just my point. I don't want Kyle Larson at plus 300 on this week, next week, or any week. I'm sorry, I just can't do it from that standpoint. Value-wise, we see closing line value with Christopher Bell. He's won a bunch of poles this season, and especially at this type of racetrack. Tyler Reddick finished second in this race in the spring. Had it not been for a pit road issue, he could have contended head-to-head with Kyle Larson to potentially win that race, as Larson did win this race in the spring as well, and he won it last year. So it makes sense for him to be the favorite there. But like you said, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, those are 2 other drivers you have to keep an eye on. Joey Logano went into this race 2 years ago. Same type of situation. Under the radar, underdog. It was an even year. People talking about even year Joey Logano, and that's why he has success. And it's crazy to say because 16-1 for Joey Logano to win this race. He's 12-1 to win the championship. That might be your best value play of this NASCAR playoffs all season long.
I need one quick answer. Somebody not in the playoffs with a chance to win. One name, real fast.
Bubba Wallace.
All right. We always go with Bubba Wallace. We're coming back. Thank you, Tino. We got lots more to do. Page versus the Prince. Week 7 NFL picks are next. All right, it's just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Friday edition of the show. Don't forget, SportsWrap weekends. Probably on this affiliate, but if not, check your local listings for time and schedule. We will be on Fubo beginning November 2nd. More news on that coming next week, but very excited to be joining the lineup over on Fubo, for those of you that subscribe to that. So we will have that and more news coming along those lines on their Games Plus channel. So excited news there. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, go and check it out. The Monday through Friday edition of the show is there. Sam, before we get to Page versus the Prince, there was some big news from the world of college basketball. Tony Bennett is retired as head coach at Virginia. And we'll get into this more next week, but It's not health related. Nobody seems to really know what the impetus was for him walking away from a program that's kind of been struggling here, to say the least, over the last couple of years, but a big-time coaching vacancy existing now at Virginia with Tony Bennett's departure.
Yeah, definitely. This is a weird story, Jason. I'm excited to learn more about it over the weekend and talk more about it with you next week here on the show.
Yeah.
A real head scratcher in the ACC for a team that lost to a 16 seed as a 1 seed in 2018, bounced back, won the national championship in 19 with some great players who went on to NBA success, mild NBA success at that, and then kind of fell off a cliff. Weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. This is the day and age of the NIL.
See if we can get Matt Norlander on the show and talk about it next week. All right, Sam Yarnell, it is Friday.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Paige versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
Thank you, Chad Erickson. 4-0 for this guy last week. By the way, hope you tailed me on the over in the Thursday night NFL game, Saints and Broncos. Hello, even when I'm trying to lose, I can't lose. I mean, I gave out a pick last night that I thought was a bona fide loser, and it still hit. I mean, come on. It's hard to be better than me right now. Let's just be honest about it. Perfect 4-0 last week. 14-9? For the season? I forget. 15? I forget what we are. 13? I forget. I gotta look it up. But we're rolling right now. That's all I could tell you. 15-9 for the season for both Sam and I. 15-9 on our NFL picks. All right, Sam Yarnell, you're up first. What do you got?
All right, Jason. So as I'm sure everyone has heard by now, Week 6 in the NFL was horrible for the sportsbooks. One of the most public weekends in history. The public has quite literally, since they started tracking money coming in on bets, never done as well as they did 1 week ago. Going into this week with all that in mind, I'm fading the public with every single one of these picks. Not a single one of these picks, as at the time of this recording, has the superior amount of bets or money on this side. We're getting real grimy with it, folks. We're fading the public left and right. Let's get into it. The first ugly one on the card this weekend, the New England Patriots plus 5.5. That's right, folks. It's Mayday. I'm believing it. I'll drink the Kool-Aid against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sure, why not? The New England Patriots can go into Jacksonville and win outright. Let's get Doug Peterson fired on a Sunday morning in London town.
All right.
So yeah, give me the why not? The Patriots, Drake May.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense, and sometimes the NFL makes no sense.
Vamos.
Texans plus 2.5. Packers are frauds. I'm willing to say it. They have not looked the same since Jordan Love got injured.
Wow.
Give me the Texans, who have not played as well as they should have over the last couple of weeks. Next, this one's real ugly. Give me the over 43.5 in Colts Dolphins. That's right, folks. We're getting ugly with it. Two franchises that have franchise quarterbacks that can't stop hurting themselves somehow are somehow going to combine for 44 points in this game. 24-20 is your final. I love it. Over 43.5. And finally, Lions-Vikings under 51. You got to go out and shop. I know that line is crashing down as we speak. It was 51.5 Thursday night. I've seen it as low as 50 on the number on Friday morning. I got it at 51, so that's where we're going to have it. We'll go Lions-Vikings, the divisional matchup, under 51. Patriots plus 5.5 against the Jaguars.
Yep.
Texans plus 2.5 against the Packers. Dolphins-Colts over 43.5. Vikings, Lions, under 51.
All right.
I might throw up.
Sam and his Sean McDermott-like clock management leaves me with just a few seconds. So I will tell you quickly my picks. Patriots plus 5.5 for Sam. I'm going Vikings minus 1.5 at home for the Lions. Giants and Eagles under 42.5. The Chiefs plus 1.5. How do you bet against a team that hasn't lost yet? Steelers and Jets under 38.5. My picks. for week number 7 in the NFL. It's going to do it for us. We're out of time. 4-0 last week. Hard to do better than that, but we'll try. Thank you to our guest, Tino Pattigno. Thank you to Robert Littal. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to everybody who joined us all week long. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here next week for more Sports Wrap.